Hello, and welcome to Studmonger's Guide to Pressure. Today we're going to be talking about what to do when you are the aggressor. So we're going to be going over how to deal with people who are blocking and make it so they don't feel comfortable or get into a groove. You're going to be talking about dealing with rolls, meaties, doing resets, and we're going to be talking about my favorite thing, which is maintaining pressure even when you're minus. And as a Smash Brothers player, that particular type of pressure is near and dear to my heart, and we'll talk about it here at the end, because I think it's the most fun. Before we get too far into this, I'm going to make a short PSA about plus and minus and what that means. Basically, when you do a move and your opponent blocks that move, those moves are considered to be, the move itself is considered to be plus or minus. So if it's plus, that means that you can act before your opponent does. And if it's minus, that means that your opponent can act before you do after the move is over. So in most situations, that makes it so that the character who is at advantage, frame advantage is what it's called, that character is going to be able to take their turn. But occasionally that isn't the case. Occasionally that player isn't going to, for whatever reason, be able to take their turn back even though they get to act first. So we'll be talking a little bit about that, but basically that's really all you need to know about plus and minus. Basically there's 60 frames in a second, and this game's smallest unit of measurement in time is a frame. So if you're +2, that means you're plus 2/60ths of a second on your opponent, which isn't a lot of time, but in a fighting game it's enough to be able to take advantage against somebody else. So let's get to it. The first thing we're going to be talking about is rolls, because before you can pressure your opponent, if you knock them down, you have to deal with the fact that they're rolling. If you don't follow the roll, you don't get pressure. So last time with movement, we talked about how to get a punish off of a roll away against Oleander from mid-screen. And that is the most difficult roll for her to punish, and we showed how you can do that in certain situations. This time, we're more interested in an opponent that's in the corner, rolling out of said corner. So if we do a little combo here, you'll see that they can roll out of the corner, and now all the space that we earned by getting the hit and doing a combo and putting the character in the corner, that has all been taken from us by this simple roll. Now they've got all the space on the entire screen, and we're relegated to this like 2 character length space that is now being defended by this character. We don't want that. So what are some options? Well, the first one we've already gone over, which is that you can throw rolls out of the end of their recovery. So if we do a short combo that forces the roll, we can catch that roll, and if we point them towards the wall or towards the corner, we can just put them right back in it. And so that's the first thing you can do. That throw obviously not techable, so it's a true punish. Basically, the second that they decide to roll forward and you decide you're going to catch it with a throw, they can't interact with that in any way. So they're just stuck there. But what else do we have? There's got to be something that isn't so much of a call-out, and there is. So the most common way to deal with rolling out of the corner is just take a step back. So now if our opponent tries to roll out of the corner, they're not going to be able to, and because we're Oleander, we have moves that hit the whole frickin' screen. So even if they didn't roll out of the corner, we still get a mix-up there. She can hit with 2 different moves, a high or a low from there. She can just hit with her stand C from there. She's got a lot of options. She can throw fireballs. So you're still stuck in this bad positioning at that point in time, and that's great. And the other one is a calculated risk. So once you've shown that you're willing to back off against the player, they have to continue blocking on the same side. But if you decide not to do that, once you've established that... Oh, she did not go forward there. Once you've established that, you can back up just a little tiny bit. If you really want to sell it, you can do what I just did and back up a little bit, right? So that way, it's hard for them to tell the difference between backing up a little bit and the start of the backdash animation. And now they don't know what side you're going to be on. Now, the fact that they're rolling forward against you in the corner is making it so they're putting themselves into a cross-up situation that they didn't have to put themselves into. So you've made two things for them to think about that they have to deal with that they wouldn't have to deal with if they just stayed in the corner like a good little ungulate. So that's how we're going to be dealing with rolls, and it's really strong. In fact, Oleander's got some janky stuff she can do with like her overhead, so her overhead is really janky. That's a thing. So, you know, there's a cross-up overhead because we did the backdash, but the backdash there actually doesn't bring us onto the other side. So they're probably thinking that we're on the wrong side, and even if not, they're probably blocking low. So that's a cross-up overhead that they now have to deal with. And yeah, so you can very quickly convince people that maybe they should just stay in that corner so that they don't get mixed, because they're giving you a better mix whenever they do that. So that's how we're going to pressure our opponent into staying in the corner with the threat of a stronger mix-up option because they're giving us this roll. So they'll have to start at least mixing it up or staying in the corner to avoid that, and that's what we want. We want them to just stay there so we don't have to think about that as much. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about a meaty. So, obviously, we don't want them mashing buttons on Wake Up because it's not their turn. We want to make it so that they have 3 options for the most part that are the standard options they'll get to pick, and meaty allows us to do that. So a meaty attack is an attack that is timed in such a way that even if an attack is faster than that attack, since the opponent is forced to wake up, you hit them at the startup of the animation for their attacks. So we're just timing it so that our move, regardless of how long or short it is hitting them with active frames right as they wake up. So even a fat move can be done, or can do this, because you just do it a little bit earlier, and since they're forced to wake up, they're at disadvantage, they can't just mash a button. So now you'll see if we have the Shanty wake up, she's going to use her fastest button, reversal jab, her fastest meterless button, reversal jab, and that's going to hit pretty much anything, or trade with pretty much anything, if it's done at the same time, but it's not. We have advantage here. Our opponent can't just wake up and push a button. We'll counter them. So, that's how we're going to stop them from pushing a button. This gives them 3 legitimate options on Wake Up. They can block the meaty, use an invincible reversal to get through the meaty, or get hit. And especially at a lower level against the players that we should be playing against right now, a lot of people just get hit because they think that there's all kinds of other options and all kinds of other moves that they're not using, and maybe one of them will work. But there aren't. All those options are actually just get hit. They're just veiled, and until your opponent realizes that, they're just going to get hit a lot. One of the more common ones is jumping. If you do a low, lows hit the startup frames of a jump. So not only can you do a meaty that's still going to hit all of their moves, but it's also going to catch them if they try to jump. So they're just going to try a bunch of stuff. They're just going to get hit all the time. That's the power of meaty, is it gives them 3 options, and one of those options is very good for you. One of those options is pretty good for you, and the other option is going to require a resource or a risk on your opponent's side that's higher than yours. So you keep your advantage no matter what they're choosing, because you have counterplay to all of it. Right? If they use an invincible reversal in this game, it requires resources. And if they're using it in pretty much any game ever, it's going to be unsafe if you just block it. So you'll occasionally just beat it by holding down back for a second, and then they try to go for their crazy reversal, and you just get a free hit. So that's the power of the meaty. It really reduces your opponent's options on Wake Up. So now, we've gotten them so they're staying in the corner, we've gotten them so that they're blocking our options. They're not trying to wake up and push buttons anymore. They're being a good defensive player. They're going to block it out. Well, how do we keep them uncomfortable? Well, what we want to do is we want to make it so that they have to think about more things than they can deal with in order to deal with our pressure, and then we just pick one of them. And the power of this is a lot of times they'll be on the wrong line entirely, and no matter what you do for your mix-up, it's going to work. So it's like rock, paper, scissors if your opponent doesn't know when rock, paper, scissors starts, right? That's like a lot of people talk about fighting games as rock, paper, scissors, and I agree, but the veiled thing that nobody ever really talks about is that fighting games are a game of rock, paper, scissors where you have to know where and when you get to play rock, paper, scissors. Because if you don't, then you just lose, right? So that's what we're going to try to do with our pressure. So the first and easiest of all the mix-ups, in my opinion, is the frame trap versus throw mix-up. So you're going to mix in a staggered pressure, which is going to hit your opponent if they try to push a button, and you're going to mix in throws. Now, depending upon the tendencies of your opponent, you're either just going to start by establishing frame traps. Like a new player that wants to mash out of your pressure, just slow roll your pressure all day long. They will eventually get bored, push a button, and get hit. And it doesn't take long for people to get bored. I mean, like, that, like 90% of new players are going to have pushed a button in that like 1 second sequence that we just did there, because that's how quickly people are trying to get out of being in block stun. So if you just hit them and it works, force them to change. They're just going to keep mashing. You're just going to keep frame trapping them. That's fine. Once they respect your pressure, then you can go for the throw. Now, if you have somebody who's respecting your pressure all the time, you want to go for the throw a lot earlier and establish that you're willing to throw them. So a tick throw is kind of what we're going to be going for here, and a tick throw is a throw that you do in the middle of block stun pressure. So you're going to throw out a couple of jabs, and then you're going to grab them. And that's difficult to react to, it's hard to deal with, and you can choose when you're going to do it. You can do it after the first one, you can do it after the second one. You get to choose when that happens. You can do it right now, you can do it right now, right? It's just, you get to decide. So they have to try to figure out when you're going to throw. And the power of this is if you are doing frame traps, if you're staggering your moves just long enough that there's enough time for them to start a button, but not enough for them to finish the button before they get hit, then they actually have to guess the timing, because if they guess wrong, you're just going to hit them, because they're going to try to throw, and they're just going to whiff a throw or start the throw animation, and instead they're just going to get hit in the face. And then, of course, if they do block it, and they don't guess the right timing, you're just going to throw them because they won't be teching, they'll be trying to not get frame trapped. So that's your first level of pressure. And obviously the... there we go, she's doing her fastest move here. So the frame trap is pretty simple. If you just stagger your moves, you'll get a counter hit. See? So we can choose where we're getting the counter hit there. You saw we got it on the first hit the first time, the second hit the second time. Let's try a little bit further down in our combo, or in our block string. Hey, look. Overhead? Overhead is a frame trap? It sure is. Off of your B and your C, that overhead is a frame trap. So you can just go for it, and it'll hit them if they try to push a button. And the best part is her new move, 6B, which is a low, is also a frame trap in those situations. So that's going to hit. And then if you do the C version, that's a frame trap. And if you do the C version into this, that's a frame trap. So now you've got a high-low frame trap that you can still use in combination with your tick throw. Do you see how we're starting to get to a point where your opponent has to just pick something and then hope that they're right? Yeah. This is why pressure is good and why you want to mix it up, because you want your opponent to always feel like every single time that they block a move, they might have gotten hit, right? And that's how you're going to do it. You're just going to give them so many options that they have to deal with that instead of trying to deal with all of them, because they can't, they just have to pick one. And if they're trying to deal with the high-low and you just run up and throw them, they lost. It doesn't matter if they're blocking high or low. They failed. They lose. If they're trying to tech a throw and you just go for frame trap overhead, well, you just frame trapped them. They got hit. They're trying to figure out when you're going to do a throw. There was no throw. They just lose. So not only are you playing rock, paper, scissors, but you're playing rock, paper, scissors in a situation where they may not even have a chance to win it. And that's how you're going to get your pressure rolling and make it feel a lot more like you're the one in charge because they're blocking. Because I know that for a lot of people, it feels at the beginning like people are getting more hits out of your pressure than they are out of neutral, right? Like you're doing better getting hits in neutral than you are once you've actually got pressure going, because you let your opponent get into a swing where every time you're doing the same thing, right? You do A, B, C overhead or A, B, C low, and there was no spot in there for them to push a button and get frame trapped except for the very last hit. And if they block that high, if they block that overhead, you're getting punished. And so that's bad. So you get to a point where now you're doing a 50-50 where if they guess right, they get to punish you with a huge move. It's like heavy move punishable, that overhead is. So you don't want to be in that situation. You want to be in a situation where by the time they have to deal with this overhead and guess right, they've had to guess right 3 or 4 times. And if they've done that, more power to them. So that's what you're going to be doing to get the pressure going. And then, of course, there's the right-left mix-up. Oleander obviously does this mostly in neutral with the power of her fireballs. She can threaten teleporting behind an opponent like that. And obviously, if we do go fast like that, you can see that she wasn't even out of block stun. She doesn't even get to try to push a button there until we just stopped pushing buttons. So that's very powerful. And, of course, she can teleport in front. So she can decide which side she's on there. And you can even do like a mix-up where you throw a meaty fireball off of a short combo that had a hard knockdown. The fireball becomes the meaty, and then you can teleport on either side, and that totally works as a mix-up on wake-up. So you've got lots of options there. Basically, it would be like, we need to maybe have her not blocking. That would help a lot. So something like this. She has to wake up into that fireball. You can see that that fireball is a hit. So it's meaty, and you can just teleport to the other side and then do a short combo. I believe that you get 2B launcher into a short air combo like that. That's what you get. You get like about 1,000 damage off of it. So it's not shabby damage. You get 20% off of that mix-up. And then what that sets up is that next time you can just like gain meter or, you know, gain magic and throw that fireball meaty just to stop them from doing anything while you get magic in front of their face. They'll start getting hit in the face by these fireballs that you're not even doing anything because they're afraid of the cross-up if you've got any magic on you at all. And so you have lots of fun pressure. Even when you're not actually actively pressuring people, you can condition them to do something or expect something that makes them feel like they're in more danger than they are. And that's what you want to do. That's the power of pressure and kind of what we were talking about over here in the corner with high-lows and stuff. You want to condition them, right? If they're pushing a bunch of buttons, you want to counter-hit them all the time to let them know, hey, if you push buttons, you're going to lose. And then once they realize that, if they do, if they don't, just keep doing it. Once they realize that, that's when you bring in the overheads. That's when you cancel your pressure right in the middle of it and then jump and then reset your pressure with a jump in. That's when you get to do all that crazy stuff. Once you've got them to respect that if they push buttons, they're going to die, you can start doing things that they aren't even thinking about. So, now that we've got all of that done, let's talk about resets. So the first one is just resetting block pressure. So the best way to do this, if you have it, is with a special move that's plus on block. So this is going to require a resource pretty much all the time. Oleander has got one here. It is her Chapter Trap. That move is plus 2 on block, and I am not very good with it, but you can see there that our opponent's reversal jab, right, was not fast enough to beat us when we pressed our jab. We're +2 there. We're at advantage. If we both press a button that has 5-frame startup, which is what those jabs have, mine wins because it's +2. You have to time it correctly. I'm still working on that, but I got it there, and you can see it works out just fine. Then you can reset pressure in the middle of a string. So let's say you get a jab combo, and the jab combos don't do a lot. It's like 900 to maybe 1,000 damage if you're really pushing the optimization of your jab combo. But if you get a hit off of an overhead or off of this 6B low, that's a lot of damage. That's like 1,300 to 1,400 damage. So sometimes we might want to take our smaller hits and turn them into bigger hits. So how are we going to do that if they're already getting hit? Well, we're going to sacrifice the combo that we currently have somewhere in it and start over. Now the tutorial shows you this, well, similar to this kind of combo. It's basically going to be like a basic A, B, C into chapter trap, and then it does jab into overhead. So it's going to be boop, 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 5 hits, and then it resets right there. Or you could then instead do the same thing, 5 hits, and then do this low, and you can see it's 5 hits, and then it resets again. That 6th hit, the low, doesn't actually combo. The problem with what our tutorial shows us is that, well, it gives us the idea we want. It doesn't quite give us the right way to do it. So you see, if we set Shanty up to just mash on us here, which is probably what most new beginning players are going to do once they realize you're going to try to reset them, you see that we lose to mashing. You don't want your resets to lose to mashing. You want your opponent to have to deal with that. Again, you want them to either block correctly, use an invincible move, or get hit. Those should be the only options that they get. So if your opponent is successfully blocking all of these things, or successfully like jabbing out of this pressure, that's not good. So what do we have instead that works? Well, it turns out that Oleander's 2B, there you go, that is a reset into the overhead. And her 6A is a reset into the low. I think that maybe if you do it super fast it isn't, but I'd like, nah, it looks like it is. So what you were going to do instead of that jab, same general idea. Now you see we counter hit that jab. And if we counter hit the jab, we get a 1.5 years to confirm off of that overhead with our jab instead of a 2-frame link. So we really want there to be a little bit of a gap there for them to just totally hang themselves. Same thing here. If we do this move, you can see again we got a counter hit there, starting with a 500 damage move. So that full combo that we did beforehand, right? It's like 518 damage. The starter on the counter hit is 500 damage. You want them to be able to push a button there. So if they push a button now, they lose. And you might be thinking, well, if you always have to go with the low after this button, and you always have to go with the high after this button, can't they just see what's going on? And that would be true. Like, they'd get an additional amount of time to see what's going on, except that you can cancel the 6A into the 2B, and you can cancel the 2B into the 6A. So if they're just looking for which button you press there, you can mess with them and then do one more move, and not only are you changing the timing now if they are trying to go for a reversal, you are also changing the way that they have to block based upon the first move that they saw you do. So this is still quite strong. Finally, we're going to talk about my personal favorite, which is pressuring people even when you're minus. So you can see, for the most part, our goal is to make it so that our opponent has 3 options: get hit, block, or use an invincible option. So if we want to pressure while we're minus, we still have to force them very closely into those same situations. Obviously, if they instant block some of these setups, they can still jab out of them. Like, I'm sure that the overhead and low setups that we just came up with over there, if they are instant blocked, then you're going to get hit. But, as we also showed, you can cancel these moves into each other. So if they instant block this one, and then don't instant block the one that comes right after it, they get hit. So the timing is yours to command, and so you can make it very difficult for them to do that. Here, it's a little bit easier for them to do that, but they still have to do an instant block. They get an additional option, which is instant blocking, and we're okay with that. Because we're minus, and we're still forcing them to be in a really bad position. So let's see what happens when we're minus, but we are spaced in such a way that our opponent doesn't have a good option. So you can see here that our opponent is going to try to jab. And we'll see how that goes. So we're just going to use some moves that push us a little bit further away so that we get the spacing we want. You can see that even though Shanty's jab comes out first, it doesn't go far enough to hit us, so when we push our jab, it's going to hit Shanty. And we're even in a position here where if she doesn't do anything at all, we still hit with that jab. So it's not like she can just do nothing and then like whiff punish us. That doesn't work either. So she can't jab. She's got this cool slide though, right? That slide, that goes far enough to hit us from there for sure, right? Let's see. Let's see if we can do the string. Well, it does go far enough, but it doesn't go far enough fast enough. You see, we're at a position where even though Shanty's button comes out first, she's too far away to hit us on the first frame. So by the time she gets far enough to hit us, that frame advantage evaporates. So the jab beats that too. Alright, well, what about one of her fast and long moves? There we go. This one's a little bit better. This is probably the best option that I think she's got from normals. It's quite fast, and it's quite good, but there's still a little tiny bit of time in there where she's bringing her leg out, and it becomes active pretty quickly, but the leg takes several frames to get out, and her move, the 5B, is slower than our jab. So again, she winds up in the same problem, if we don't accidentally frame trap. Which is, if we get to the right spacing, which I don't think we did there. Yep. This is why I said it was probably the best move, because it works out fairly well. But you can see that she's started to move her leg. She's got a hitbox out, but that hitbox isn't close enough to hit us yet. So it doesn't work. Well, that's too bad. What about her overhead? So her overhead has got an evasive hurt box. It means that her hurt box is like way up here somewhere, and it's actually quite difficult to hit it with moves on the ground. You'll see that if we try here, she just goes over it. It doesn't hit her, even though the jab goes straight through her character model. Well, is there a way to deal with that while still doing a jab? Well, there is. We're going to do our first instance of a buffer. So I'm going to press backwards, and I'm going to hit A and B. So you can see we're doing that fairly quickly. Now, if we hit Shanty, you'll see that it goes into the full AB string, even though we're doing it fairly quickly. If we don't hit her, only the A comes out, and then we start blocking. So, since she can't hit us with any lows because the jab comes out fast enough to hit the low, we can do this, and it option selects for us. If we hit, it goes into the string, and we can keep going. And now she doesn't get to do the stuff she wants to do. If it doesn't, we'll be blocking high. So, how does that look? You can see that we tried to press B there, but the B didn't come out because we didn't actually hit Shanty with the A, and then we just blocked the overhead. And that overhead is minus $1 billion, and now we get to hit her. So that doesn't work either. All right. Well, what about jump forward? Surely jump forward works. I mean, we're +2, right? You already know the answer to this. can't get close enough, right? We catch her, we check her before she can get out of the range of our jab. So, Shanty, despite being +2 there, has 3 options. Block, do an invincible reversal, or get hit. And in that kind of a situation, I'm feeling pretty good about being the character that's -2. I think my favorite part about this is that coming from Smash Brothers, where this is just how pressure works, the fighting game frame lords hate this. You will get so many hits off of being -2. It boggles my mind. It's so good. Obviously, they can instant block it and then punish you, and that changes everything because they get 3 extra frames to catch you, and those 3 extra frames allow her standing medium kick and her slide to connect with you. She gets a lot better options there, so you do still have to be careful, but it forces the Shanty to do something first before being able to hit you. She's got to put you to -5 by risking an instant block before she can try to hit you there. So you're still at a severe advantage being at -2, and I love that. I can get so many hits off of being -2. It is great. And that is what I'm hoping to be doing here in this next coming week when we do the week of pressure. I hope to see you there.